Celestial detour. Aria Martinez hurried through the gleaming corridors of Nexus Station. Her sample case clutched tightly against her chest. The massive space station served as the intersection point for 7 different species and housed the largest botanical research center in the quadrant. 15 minutes, she muttered, checking the holographic display on her wrist. 15 minutes to get these thylosian moss samples to the lab before they deteriorate. The station hummed around her, countless travelers moving through its arteries like blood cells. Merchants, scientists, and diplomats from across the galaxy, all brushing past each other in organized chaos ahead. The transport hub glowed with soft blue light shuttles arriving and departing. In perfect synchronization, Aria rushed toward the nearest available pod. Sliding her station ID across the scanner. Botanical Research Division, please, she said breathlessly, stepping into the sleek compartment. The doors slid closed with a gentle hiss and the shuttle began to move the station's artificial gravity. Keeping her steady as it accelerated through the transit tubes, Aria finally allowed herself to relax. The moss samples were safely sealed in their containment fields and she'd make it to the lab in time. She gazed out the transparent walls, watching residential pods and recreation domes flash past. Something wasn't right. This isn't the route to the science sector. She realized with growing alarm. The shuttle was moving toward the outer ring where the diplomatic quarter gleamed with ceremonial lights and heightened security. "Excuse me," Aria called to the shuttle's AI system. "There's been a mistake. I'm headed to botanical research." The system responded with a pleasant tone. "This shuttle is designated for diplomatic sector access. Only please check destination codes before boarding," Aria groaned. She'd been so rushed she'd failed to notice the shuttle's designation. Great, now she'd have to transfer and probably lose another 20 minutes. The shuttle slowed, approaching a security checkpoint instead of the usual automated scan. A human officer stood at attention, his dark uniform crisp and imposing. He had the stern expression of someone who took rules very seriously. "Shuttle arrived from Central Hub." The officer announced, his voice deep and measured. "ID and destination verification required." Aria stepped out, clutching her sample case as the officer approached. His gaze, methodical and assessing station security, had increased recently following rumors of diplomatic tensions. "I'd please." His eyes met hers briefly, and Aria felt an unexpected flutter beneath her ribs. He was handsome in a severe way, with strong features and eyes that seemed to catalog everything. They observed Aria Martinez, botanical research specialist. She explained, handing over her credentials. "I boarded the wrong shuttle by accident. I'm trying to reach the science sector." The officer, Tavik, according to his nameplate, examined her eye with careful precision. "You're significantly off course, Specialist Martinez. The diplomatic sector requires special clearance." His expression remained neutral, but Aria detected a hint of suspicion. "These samples are time-sensitive," she explained. "They need to reach the stabilization chambers within." He checked her wrist display with rising panic. 10 minutes, Officer Tavik raised an eyebrow, the slightest break in his professional demeanor. She could tell he was calculating protocols and procedures. "Follow me," he finally said with what seemed like reluctance. "I can authorize a priority shuttle, but you'll need to stay within my sight at all times." He led her through a security doorway and down a corridor she'd never seen before. The walls here were smoother, more elegant. Diplomats from various worlds moved past in flowing garments, engaged in quiet conversation. A flash of movement caught Aria's eye, a figure slipping between columns, her skin a distinctive purple hue that Aria recognized instantly. A Lyraxian. Their species rarely seen outside their homeworld since the border disputes began. Tavik noticed her attention shift, his hand moving subtly toward the weapon at his hip. "Eyes forward, Specialist," he murmured. "Keep moving the way." He positioned himself slightly between her and the diplomatic proceedings, made Aria wonder if he was protecting her or them, their shoulders nearly touching as they navigated the crowded passage. "The priority shuttle is ahead," he said, his voice lowered as though sharing a secret with her unauthorized personnel in this sector could create an incident. An incident, Aria echoed, feeling suddenly like she'd stepped into something much larger than a missed shuttle. Tavik's eyes met hers again, this time holding her gaze a moment longer, something unspoken passing between them. The diplomatic quarter often contains matters beyond botanical research. Specialist, for a moment Aria forgot about her precious moss samples. The station seemed to fade around them, leaving just this curious connection with a security officer she'd never see again after today. But as a commotion erupted behind them, Tavik's expression changed instantly from cautious guide to alert protector. The purple-skinned, Laraxian diplomat had emerged from the shadows, moving quickly now. Pursued by figures in unmarked uniforms, take cover. Tavik ordered, his hand closing around Arya's wrist, pulling her behind a structural column, just as energy weapons discharged where they had been standing seconds before. Sometimes Arya thought as chaos erupted around them. The wrong turn leads exactly where you're meant to be. Purple shadows. The pulse of energy weapons scorched the wall beside them. Arya clutched her sample case, protectively, as Tavik drew his sidearm, his body positioned to shield her across the corridor. The Laraxian diplomat moved with surprising agility, her purple skin almost shimmering under the emergency lights that had activated with the first weapons. Discharge this way, Tavik urged, pulling Arya toward a maintenance access panel. His security clearance unlocking it instantly. What about her? Arya whispered, nodding toward the Laraxian, who was now cornered between two unmarked assailants. Tavik's jaw tightened. She's not our concern getting you to safety, as Arya knew she should follow protocol. Let the security officer handle the situation, return to her plants and her orderly life. But something in the Laraxian's desperate expression spoke. To her without warning, Arya bolted from their cover, racing toward the cornered diplomat. Tavik cursed behind her, but she heard his footsteps following. "Hey," Arya called, throwing her sample case at the nearest attacker, the specialized container striking him squarely between the shoulders. The distraction was enough. The Laraxian diplomat seized the moment, slipping past her pursuers and toward Arya, Tavik's weapon now raised. "Providing cover through here," he commanded, holding the maintenance door wider, the three of them tumbling through as Tavik sealed it behind them in the dim emergency lighting of the maintenance tunnel. The Laraxian diplomat regarded them with luminous eyes that seemed to glow slightly. Her purple skin had a subtle iridescence, patterns shifting beneath the surface. "I am Niaras, and diplomatic envoy," she said, her voice melodic with an accent Arya couldn't place. "I thank you for your intervention, though it was unwise." Tavik holstered his weapon, his expression thunderous. "Do you realize what you've done, Specialist Martinez? We are now involved in whatever she's running from. I couldn't just..." Arya began. "Watch her be killed." Tavik finished, his anger softening slightly into reluctant understanding, though his posture remained rigid. "I need to report this to station security." Niaras' expression darkened. "No, you must not. Those men were security agents corrupted by the Voss consortium." Arya glanced between them, the diplomat and the security officer, tension crackling in the recycled air. "They seek what I carry." Niara continued, her slender fingers touching a pendant at her throat. "Information that could prevent war between our worlds." Arya noticed a pattern etched into the pendant. Something botanical in nature recognition, sparking in her mind. "Is that a Syraxian bloom?" she asked, forgetting momentarily about their predicament. Niara looked surprised. "You recognize this pattern?" "I'm a botanist specialized in xenoflora," Arya explained. "Those petals have a unique logarithmic sequence." The Laraxian diplomat studied Arya with new interest. "This knowledge, it may be valuable. Tavik has the authority. I have the information. But you..." She touched Arya's hand. "Briefly, you've the key we didn't know we needed." Tavik sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "I should arrest both of you instead. I'm apparently becoming an accomplice." A smile flickered across his serious features. The first Arya had seen, softening his face in a way that made her heart skip unexpectedly. "You're more than your uniform, officer." Tavik. Niara observed her perceptive gaze moving between the humans, noting something neither had yet acknowledged. They moved deeper into the maintenance corridors, Tavik occasionally checking his wrist device for security sweeps, Arya mourning her lost moss samples while trying to make sense of her new reality. "The diplomatic sector will be locked down soon," Tavik explained. "We need to find somewhere to regroup. I know these tunnels." Niara offered they connect to hydroponics near the outer hull. Perfect for hiding. As they navigated the labyrinthine passages, Arya found herself walking closer to Tavik, his steady presence becoming a comfort in the uncertainty, their hands occasionally brushing, sending unexpected warmth through her fingers. When they paused at a junction, Tavik pulled Arya aside, his voice. "Lo, those men will be looking for you now because of what you've done. Do you understand the danger you've put yourself in?" Arya met his concerned gaze without flinching. Sometimes the right thing doesn't feel like a choice. Something shifted in Tavik's expression, a respect mingling with another emotion Arya wasn't ready to name. He reached out hesitantly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch lingering. "We hardly know each other," he said. "Yet you feel familiar somehow." Yara cleared her throat from ahead, a knowing expression on her purple features. "Humans," she murmured with something like amusement. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion somewhere less exposed." The moment broken. Tavik nodded, resuming his professional demeanor. But Arya noticed he stayed closer to her than before as they followed the Lyraxian diplomat deeper into the hidden arteries of Nexus Station. The path ahead uncertain but somehow feeling right. Part 3. Trust Falls Hydroponics Level 7 hummed with the gentle sound of irrigation systems and atmospheric regulators. The massive chamber filled with plants from across the galaxy, rows of specialized growing containers, bathed in artificial sunlight. Yara had led them to a secluded section behind, experimental Terran orchards where the dense foliage provided natural cover from security sensor. Saria moved through the plants with reverent familiarity, checking water levels and nutrient balances. Automatically, her botanist instincts taking over. "Despite their circumstances, you really do love these plants," Tavik observed, watching her from where he sat monitoring station security channels. His uniform jacket removed in the warmer environment, revealing a simple black undershirt that highlighted the strength in his shoulders. "They don't lie," Arya replied, running her fingers along a leaf. "The universe might be complicated, but plants just want light, water, and care. They respond to how you're treated them." Yara emerged from behind a hydroponic tower where she'd been meditating, the patterns on her purple skin seeming more vibrant after her rest. "Your station security is thorough," she noted, sitting beside Tavik. "They search level by level. However, they broadcast their movements on channels they believe secure." Tavik nodded grimly. "They'll reach this section within hours. We need to understand what's happening and why they're after you." Yara touched her pendant. "The Lyraxian Diplomatic Corps discovered evidence that members of our own government conspired with the Voss Consortium to sabotage the peace treaty," she explained, her musical voice tinged with sadness. "They wish to continue the border conflicts for profit." "And that pendant?" Arya asked, recognizing again the botanical pattern etched into its surface, "contains the evidence encrypted using ancient Lyraxian botanical ciphers." Yara replied, "Only diplomatic envoys are trained to read them, but the conspirators would recognize enough to know its importance." Arya leaned forward, examining the pendant more closely. "The sequence of petals and leaves reminds me of Thylosian cryptobotany," she mused. "The patterns some believe contain mathematical sequences that—" Tavik raised a hand, suddenly alert. Silencing them, his head tilted, listening. To his security channel patrol entering hydroponics main entrance, he whispered, "2 officers, standard sweep." They pressed deeper into the foliage area, guiding them toward a maintenance closet nestled among the plant beds. The 3 of them squeezing. Inside, the small space bodies necessarily close in the darkness. Arya found herself pressed against Tavik's chest, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist to stabilize her as they stood motionless, listening to the footsteps outside, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her ear, oddly comforting. Yara observed them with those luminous eyes that seemed to see more than just physical presence. Her own body perfectly still with a control area envied. When the patrol passed, Tavik didn't immediately release Arya. Instead, his hand moved slightly along her back, his touch gentle despite his strength. "I should hate this," he whispered, his breath warm against her hair, "breaking protocols, risking my position." But Arya prompted, looking up at him in the dim light filtering through the closet vents. "But I can't remember the last time I felt this alive," his confession barely audible. Yara made a soft sound, something between amusement and approval. "Your species' emotions are beautiful," she observed, "like watching stars being born." Reluctantly, they emerged from hiding, returning to their improvised camp among the plants. Tavik retrieving small ration packs from his utility belt, sharing them equally, as night cycle began the hydroponics. Lighting dimmed, simulating sunset. Arya found herself sitting beside Tavik, their shoulders touching as Niara demonstrated Lyraxian meditation techniques nearby. "I never asked," Arya said softly. "Why security? What made you choose that path?" Tavik was quiet for a moment, his profile strong against the fading light structure. He finally said, "I needed structure after the colony collapse on Proxima B. Lost my family. Everything had rules, made sense. Gave me purpose." Arya placed her hand over his. "There," fingers intertwining naturally. "I'm sorry." He turned to her, his expression softer than she'd seen before. "What about you? Why plants?" "They survive," Arya smiled. "Despite everything, they adapt, find new ways to live, beautiful and resilient." She hadn't realized how close they'd drawn until she could feel his breath against her lips the moment suspended between them. When he kissed her, it felt like gravity shifting, something fundamental changing in the universe. A connection neither had expected, but now seemed inevitable. His hand gentle against her cheek as the artificial night bloomed around them. Niara watched from a respectful distance, understanding that some forms of diplomacy happened without words, between hearts finding common ground across differences, just as she hoped her worlds might someday do the same. Whispers between stars. The morning cycle brought increased security alerts throughout Nexus Station. Tavik security channels buzzed with coded messages about fugitives and restricted protocols. They're escalating the search, Tavik informed them, checking his tactical display. "They're describing you as an abducted officer." He nodded toward Niara. "And you as a potential accomplice," he told Arya. Arya sat cross-legged on the floor. The Lyraxian pendant disassembled before her components arranged in botanical sequences, her training allowing her to see patterns others might miss. "This isn't just a data storage device," she explained. "It's a key. The actual information must be stored elsewhere. The sequences correspond to specific plant genetic codes." Niara nodded, impressed. "You understand faster than expected. The information is held in the diplomatic archives, encrypted using these botanical keys without both elements. The evidence remains." Arya looked up, her eyes meeting Tavik's, their connection from the previous night still humming between them like a live current. "We've been thinking too small," she said. "What if we don't just escape? What if we broadcast the evidence to everyone?" Tavik considered her words thoughtfully. "Station-wide communications are restricted, but I could access emergency channels with my clearance." "It's too dangerous." Niara protested. "The conspirators have infiltrated multiple levels of security." Arya reached for Tavik's hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Sometimes the biggest risk is doing nothing." The hydroponics bay provided excellent cover for their planning. Tavik's security expertise combined with Niara's diplomatic knowledge and Arya's unexpected crypto-botanical insights, forming a strategy none could have developed alone. "I need to access my research terminal," Arya explained, scanning the pendant components. "The botanical sequencing equipment. There can decode these patterns, then match them to the archive reference." Tavik nodded grimly. "The science sector will be watched, but less heavily than diplomatic areas. We can use maintenance tunnels." Most of the way as they prepared to move, Niara observed them. Her expression curious human's form. Bonds quickly, she noted almost instinctively. "How do you know when to trust?" Arya glanced at Tavik, remembering their kiss beneath the artificial sunset. "Sometimes you don't know," she admitted. "You just hope and take the chance." Tavik's hand found the small of her back, a gesture becoming familiar. "You learn to read people." He added, "In my work, it's the difference between life and death." They moved through the station's hidden pathways, Tavik's security knowledge guiding them past patrols nearing the science sector, with each careful step Arya leading when plant knowledge proved useful. Tavik when security concerns arose, their teamwork unspoken but effective. The botanical research lab was dimly lit during night cycle, workstations abandoned as Arya slipped inside her familiar territory. Now feeling strangely different after everything that had happened, she activated her terminal, keeping power usage minimal to avoid detection while Niara stood guard. Tavik connected his security device to a communication port, ready to override protocols when needed. The pendant components aligned with Arya's scanning equipment, botanical sequences revealing themselves as data patterns intricate and beautiful in their complexity. Their Tavik pointed to a sequence in the diplomatic archives, his security access revealing file locations. I can access this through emergency protocols, but we need a distraction. Nyara stepped forward, her purple skin seeming to absorb the dim light. I will create your distraction. The security forces know my appearance. I can draw them away temporarily. Arya looked at her with concern. They'll capture you. The Lyraxian diplomat smiled. Sadly, sometimes one must fall. So truth may rise. Tavik shook his head. That's not how we do this, he said firmly. We've come this far together. We leave together. Arya felt something warm unfurl in her chest at his words, his principles stronger than his, protocols his humanity deeper than his training. We can use the environmental controls, she suggested. Suddenly, botanical research requires specialized atmospheric settings. I can trigger anomalies throughout the station. Nothing dangerous, but enough. To divide security resources, Tavik smiled that determined expression. Arya was growing to love appearing on his face. You're remarkable, you know that. With their plan in place, Arya began reconfiguring environmental controls, while Tavik prepared the communication override Nyara, continuing to decode the final botanical sequences. In the quiet moment before they enacted their plan, Tavik pulled Arya close, his forehead resting against hers. Whatever happens next, he whispered, his voice rough with emotion, know that meeting you missing that shuttle was the best wrong turn I've ever taken. Arya reached up, tracing the line of his jaw with her fingertips. Sometimes the wrong path leads exactly where you need to be. With a deep breath, she initiated the sequence environmental alerts triggering across the station. Tavik's security override activating as Nyara's decoded evidence began streaming to every terminal throughout Nexus Station. The truth flowing like water through a parched garden, ready to grow something new. Gravity of choice, the central plaza of Nexus Station hummed with activity delegates from 7 worlds gathered in unprecedented assembly. The diplomatic crisis had become an opportunity for change. 3 days had passed since the broadcast evidence of the conspiracy, flowing through every level of the station, impossible to contain or deny. The Voss Consortium representatives had been detained. Corruption within both human and Lyraxian security forces exposed. Arya stood at the observation window overlooking the gathering, her reflection ghosted against the stars beyond the station, feeling simultaneously like the same person who had rushed to deliver moss samples and someone entirely new. You should be down there, Tavik said, joining her. His uniform replaced with civilian clothing, though his posture remained military precise. You're part of why they're all talking instead of fighting. Arya smiled, looking at him, the man who had transformed from stern security officer to partner in revolution, to something far more personal in the space of days. I prefer watching from a distance, she admitted. Plants are still easier for me to understand than politics. Nyara approached, her purple skin adorned with formal, diplomatic markings for the historic occasion, the flowing robes of her office restored. The council has reached a decision, she announced, her melodic voice carrying pride. The peace treaty will proceed with new protections and oversight. My government extends official gratitude to you both and unofficially, Tavik asked, catching the subtle shift in Nyara's expression. The diplomat smiled, the light catching the iridescent patterns on her skin. I am authorized to offer you positions as cultural ambassadors. To Lyraxia, we believe perspective from those who risked everything for truth would be valuable. Arya exchanged glances with Tavik, the unspoken question hanging between them. What happens now? Where do we go from here? Nyara, sensing the moment, stepped away, giving them privacy. Humans, she murmured with affectionate exasperation, always needing to discuss what is already decided in your hearts. When they were alone, Tavik took Arya's hands in his, the touch now familiar, yet still sending warmth through. Here he requested transfer from station security. He said, his thumbs tracing circles on her palms. New position in diplomatic protection. If you're interested in continuing your botanical research on Lyraxia area. Studied his face, the strong features that had first appeared stern now. Beloved, the eyes that had catalogued her as a security concern, now looking at her with unmistakable love. You know, she said thoughtfully, Lyraxian botanical systems are remarkably advanced. Their evolutionary patterns suggest adaptive intelligence that could revolutionize xenobotanical theory. Tavik's expression brightened as that a yes. Arya stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. It's a yes to Lyraxia, to ambassador work, to seeing where this path leads. She reached up, touching his face to you. When he kissed her, the stars beyond the window seemed to brighten as if approving their decision. Nyara, returning to find them embraced, rolled her eyes in a remarkably human gesture. If you two are finished, making your decision known to each other, she said with mock severity. The council awaits and our transport leaves tomorrow. Arya gathered her courage for the council meeting ahead, but found her fear diminished with Tavik's hand in hers and Nyara's confident presence beside them, the unlikely trio, who had changed the course of interstellar politics because of a wrong turn and a simple choice to help someone in need. The next morning, Arya packed her research materials and personal belongings, her plants carefully preserved for the journey, her old life boxed away to make room for the new. What will you miss most about Nexus Station? Tavik asked, helping her secure the last container. Arya considered the question, thinking of her laboratory, her carefully cultivated specimens, the ordered, predictable life she'd built. Nothing, she realized with surprise, because I'm taking everything important with Medivik. Smiled, understanding her meaning as Nyara called from the transport doorway, announcing their departure time. As they boarded, Arya glanced back at the station one last time. The massive structure that had been her home, now a stepping stone to something greater. Sometimes she thought as the doors closed, and Tavik took her hand sometimes. Missing your floor leads you exactly where you belong. The transport hummed to life, carrying them toward Lyraxia, toward new stars, new plants, new challenges, and most importantly, toward each other. The gravity of their choices pulling them forward, into an unexpected but welcome future together.